Your poor phone.
I just eat it everywhere.
You need a wallet chain for your phone.
I guess. It's fine.
Like a rubber wrist strap thing, so if you drop it, it goes boing.
It's only been dropped like
50
100 times.
You nailed it one time, like awfully. Like
Yeah.
it was a couple of days ago. It fell all the way off the counter and just went smack on the tile, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Hey, this OtterBox does the job, man.
Yeah. Is your glass snapped though? It is.
Well, that's the glass
protector.
cover. Remember?
Oh yeah, your protector.
I got mine on. You couldn't.
That's true.
So this is just the tempered glass shit that's cracked. So it's fine.
Oh boy. Fantastic. Thanks, Cloud Massacre. 99-cent tile already. OtterBox is unmatched. Yeah, I had an OtterBox on my last one. But I'm like an old man when it comes to the phone. I like having this, like, I can't really show it to you guys because it's on the phone, but I've got like this like wallet thing for the phone. It's got like a cover that goes over the top of it. And then I can use it to prop the phone up like this. Like I use this a lot. Like even when I'm not streaming, just to like sit and watch a video or something out here. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the OtterBox anymore.
I mean, you can get kickstand ones, but the kickstand's not as sturdy.
I had the pop socket on it for a while. Like my last phone, I had an OtterBox with a pop socket, and the pop socket you could do this, but it wasn't like it would fall over a lot. And this just lets it sit there, which is nice. Kitty.
Do you want to say hello?
How regal he is with the king cricket. Cricket the king. Get me out. Nope. You don't want to be out here. It's a tough world out here, Cricket. It's a tough world out here, Cricket.
There's, I think, at least 8 separate cats in this neighborhood.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, I have a question. The internet coverage we see on Karens seems to be very one-sided. Do you think it's important for someone to cover these stories from the point of view of the Karens? I mean, it would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to try and take a Karen's side and see if you could make a logical argument for why the Karen was in the right, or at the very least, like, morally neutral in the situation. It's an interesting exercise in empathy, I think, to try and empathize with one of the groups of people who, you know, for better or for worse, seem to be lacking in public empathy right now.
I feel like they've said everything that they want to say, because they're the ones talking the most in those videos.
True.
Like, it's not like their side's not being heard.
I guess you're right. I think the question is more like, though, like, what's going on in the Karen's, like, should we consider that? Should we make a consideration for what's going on inside the Karen's mind?
Yeah.
Because clearly they think that they're correct. Mm-hmm. They feel very righteous and indignant about it. Should their perspective be considered? I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm a child and I'd like to talk to the manager of Highdeology. That's me. How can I help you, young gentleman / lady? Are you filming me? I'm a child. Why are you filming a child? Well, that's right. It is St. Patty's Day, isn't it?
Yeah. We don't got... Well, I got green on.
You got some green, I don't.
But you're Irish, so you don't have to wear the green.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I never heard that as a kid. I was never able to use that. I got pinched a lot.
That's the way I learned it. Is if you're Irish, you already have it. So
yeah, I've already got the green inside me, laddie.
I can't make a convincing enough argument that I've got enough Irish to count. I used to try to pull that, but after doing the DNA thing, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I'm Irish as can be. I've got a nice little slice of me pie that's Irish, eh? I've got a 4-leaf shamrock in me heart. You're Irish too. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting from like a personal perspective to know where your ancestors came from, but I think people put a lot more like import on it generations down the line than they should. Like people are a little obsessed. I've never left the United States other than to go to Mexico. So I've never visited Ireland or anywhere else. I don't even really count my trips to Mexico, to be honest with you, because I was in little American tourist enclaves in Mexico. That's not Mexico. Yeah, I've never gotten to travel abroad, as they say.
I can't really count Canada either because I was so close to the border that it doesn't feel like it counts neither.
Yeah. I don't know where I would like choose to go. If I could go to one place in the world. That would be a tough choice.
England's still got some cool history. Like they got that Roman bath, England.
Oh yeah. If we're gonna see Roman stuff though, shouldn't we just go to Rome?
Yeah, that's true.
Iberostar resorts in Mexico are quite fun. Not super authentic, but it's safe in the authentic territory. I don't know about that. I go to Ireland to visit relatives yearly. Oh, aye, laddie. Yeah, I'd love to go to Ireland. It'd be fun. Eyes are just barely open. Like, why don't you go lay down, sleepy kitty? Looks like you're starting to get a little sleepy tired. Let me go have a little kitty nap. He's gonna fall asleep right there. I'm really looking good today. No, I'm not. But thanks.
No, you look good. Your bun all in a situation that's all together.
I don't like it. Just didn't want my hair all fucking down in my face today, blowing around in my face. The Roman stuff in Rome is very different from Roman ruins around other parts of Europe, North Africa. The Roman ruins of Britain are unique. Sure. I just think that you probably just get more Roman stuff. If you want to go see stuff that's Roman, you probably more of it in Rome. Is that a man bun? I guess. What's the difference between a man bun and a lady bun? Somebody tell me.
I feel like the man bun's more of a top knot, though. Like you have it far enough back that it's not man bunny.
Oh, it's when you take it like the whole top of it. is. I don't know what the difference between a bun and a man bun is. Is it always a man bun if it's a bun on a man? Or is there a certain style of bun that's only a man?
When I think of man bun, I think of the dudes that have like the undershave and just have the bun with like the top part of it.
The Vosh hairdo?
Yeah.
They've got like the sides and back shaved and they just bun it up on the top.
That's my definition of a man bun.
Well then I don't have a man bun then. Just got a bun. Yeah, I don't think I would ever like keep long hair and do the whole under shave, side shave thing. I just get a haircut at that point. I think it's more of a masculine presenting bun. I don't know which one of those which that is. I see a hairstyle that I like a lot. It's kind of like you see a lot of like Zoomer SoundCloud rapper type dudes have it, where they will take their the whole hair and put it on it in the top, but then just kind of let it like it's like a palm tree up there. They just put it in a big ponytail and like leave the hair just like hanging out up there. I think that looks pretty cool, but I've never been able to do it. I've tried to do it a couple of times, like just put my hair up in a bun like that, but I can't do it myself. I've never been able to finagle around it. Get cornrows? No, dude. I'll tell you what. I have a cousin he's infamous in my family. He's a dude that has just made every bad decision ever. And I haven't seen him in years and years and years. One of the last times I saw him, he had white boy cornrows, and they looked so ridiculous on him that it killed any desire that I ever had to even try something that even looked like that. He doesn't even look all that much like me, but I've just like, it just killed any desire. My stepdad showed me a picture of that cousin. Well, it was probably like a year ago or something, and it blew me out. I was like, oh my God. Didn't even recognize dude. Like, drugs, not even once, man.
Yeah, I feel like...
No.
I don't know. I feel like every white person has one meth head cousin.
Yeah, I think it's a rite of passage. I have one cousin that went the meth route. Do you have family outside the U.S.? None that I know of. I'm sure I do. I'm sure I've got like extended family that doesn't live in the United States, but I don't know any of them. You don't have the fucked up cousin, but you have a lot of crackhead relatives in general. No.
Yeah, I mean, meth head's like a
it's an all-encompassing generic term. Cornrows are definitely not for white folk. See, I don't know about that. Like, I think when it comes to hair, there's really not a lot of claims that people can make towards like cultural appropriation unless you're talking about like a very unique and new type of hairstyle. And even then, like how you do your hair, that seems to be hard to make cultural appropriation claims about. Like, for example, people will make fun of like white people getting dreads all the time, but white people have been getting dreads since well before the social media, like well before the modern era. You find, historical records of different, types of white person wearing their hair in dreadlocks or braids. So I really don't.
Yeah, this is kind of how I saw it described one time. It was like some people don't like white people doing that because black people will have their hair like that and like will get fired or won't get jobs or will have to change their hair for school or whatever.
That I can understand.
So I think the solution is more instead of like gate blocking
Just like more
hair, just
acceptance,
yeah,
just making it like more mainstream to have your hair however you want it,
yeah.
which seems to be like, the crowd pleaser solution, right? But I don't know.
Right to hair.
Huh?
The right to hair.
Yep. Do your hair however you want.
Maybe with the exception of like a mohawk with like "fuck you" dyed into the side.
Why? Do that too. Paul most likely has family back in Europe branching from his original family tree, those that stayed behind. Yeah, I mean, I can guarantee you I do. My family's only 3 generations in the United States, and I can trace it, trace my family history back to immigration from Europe. So I almost certainly have European relatives, distant, more distant, second cousins, third cousin type of thing in Europe, but I don't know of them and they don't know of me. So. I think it'd be odd to meet distant relatives.
You don't think you could hang?
I could probably hang, but I think it'd just be odd.
I met a lot of like second and third cousins because my one grandma has so few grandkids. She just took in a bunch of them.
She just adopted a bunch of cousins as grandkids.
Yeah. I think she's hoping for she at least was hoping for the great grandkid thing, but I don't know if it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
It ain't happening with me, so there's only one other cousin I got on that side that can do it.
Better get to breeding. They better get to breeding. I had somebody real mad at me in the last Onion Nuggets, comment section that was like, I guess I said something about not having children.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, kids are the future, man. The whole generation with no kids dies. Just like, oh boy, found the parent. Just like, look, dude, there are plenty of people like, you can't look at me and claim that I have any impetus to have children, dude. My family is filled with children. All right, my sister has taken care of any children that I was supposed to have and then some. Like, if I was like slated for your average 2 kids, she's quadrupled it. She's got 8 of them. Okay, there's no way, genetically speaking, that I needed to push this line any further. It's moved forward. Considering your situation down there, that's kind of an insensitive comment. I'm not sensitive about it, though. If I was sensitive about it, I just wouldn't have told people about it. I really don't like.
Anything that's a bragging right.
I mean, yeah, it's a positive thing in my life. I'll tell you that much.
You don't gotta worry about it. You don't gotta fucking do all kinds of stupid shit.
Yeah, if I was like real hypersensitive about it, I never would have thrown it out to the internet. I find it pretty funny, like, honestly, about like people like bragging about having children or whatever. Just seems like a kind of a cope session that goes on with parents. I did it. Why didn't you do it? Joe.
Vasectomies are reversible, so if you want the freedom of not worrying about having kids, dudes, just do it.
Yeah. Why not? I'm the last person in my family's line I know of my extended family would be annoyed if I didn't have kids. I mean, I'm kind of like the last one in my direct line. Like, if I cared about passing my name on to the next generation or whatever, I'm the last one that can do that in my family. But they can suck it.
Yeah, if they really wanted the name passed on, then your sister needs to take back her old name or whatever.
I guess that's not true. I have one cousin that can push forward the family name. One cousin on my dad's side that, should he decide to breed, will pass along the name. If not, then this little branch of my family tree just fucking drops. You're not passing down shit. You're getting your robot parts and you're going to be eternal. All right. Cool. But I don't want that either.
You don't have enough faith in the next 100 years.
Hell no. Hell to the no. You're going to put up with some shit. Here lies the last Paul to ever Paul. The one and only Zigo. You'd probably be fine living for a few hundred years before you got bored. I don't even think you have a frame of reference for that.
I don't think you understand the boredom that could be in your future.
Or just like the angst.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I like that aspect of Neil Asher's books where it's like everyone is functionally immortal, then everyone has their like ennui moment when they turn 300 years old.
There's like, what's the point? 300 is the new 20. Well, it's not like there's no off switch. But what if there is, though? What if your fucking transhuman future includes getting rid of the off switch? I'll be right back. Ooh. Want to try it again? You want to try it again, buddy? Oh, that's a good hug.
You want to say hello to the peoples?
You want to show everybody your beautiful new haircut? Oh, does everybody want to see Dino's pretty new haircut? Oh, dude.
Dad had to save you.
Oh, dude. Oh, whoa. Look at him. Look at him go. Look at his pretty hair. Look at this pretty boy. What are you doing? Where are you going? Oh. That was a
Had to save him, dude.
It was a half-assed leap, Dinor. It was a good boing. It was a good try.
You gonna do mamas? Go get your ball.
Yeah, Dinor is looking good. It's all shaved up. Ready for the summer.
Yeah.
Got a fresh lineup. Got a fresh fade at the barbershop yesterday.
Mm-hmm. No, come on. Hey.
Figured that one out.
Did you get a fresh fade, D? Yeah. A fresh fade. Looking good. It's looking real good.
Mm-hmm.
Look over here, D. Oh, yeah. Ladies, please. Hold back. Look too good, D.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Arnold's Russia speech? I actually started watching it a little bit before I started this. I saw it on Twitter. Somebody had reposted it or whatever. And I got about 20 seconds into it, and I was just like, man, who elected Arnold to do this shit? You remember when he was doing that, like, before the election? He was like, democracy is like a sword. It is like Conan's sword. You must take the iron and you must beat it and then quench it and put it in the fire and then beat it and quench it and put it in the fire, or else the sword will not be strong. It's like, when did fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger become like Mr. International Incident, you know? Shut up.
He did a big COVID speech too.
Yeah. I would like to talk to everyone about COVID.
He misses being governor, man. I bet he could be governor again if he really wanted to.
Easily. He could
Unless
be
he
governor
hit
again.
the term limit or something. I don't know if he did.
Maybe he did. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know how it works in California. I know we've had governors that were governors for like a full term and then came back. Like Jerry Brown comes to mind.
Mhm.
I know that Jerry Brown was governor for a long time when I was a kid and then came back. It was like in my 20s. You must plunge the sword into fire.
He just can't be president. That's the one thing he can't do.
Yeah. Unless we change the Constitution. Resistance captured him and reprogrammed his CPU. Oh, shit. Hear the lamentation of the constituency. To crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women. He should run for president at this point. He can't. He's Austrian. He's an Austrian national. He can't run for president. It's time to terminate Donald Trump once and for all.
Well, he was governor too long. Can't go back.
Can't do it again, huh? Plunge it into the fire.
He's got to pick a new state.
Yep.
It's weird how like that isn't restricted at all. Like you can be from wherever, but be a senator or governor or whatever state.
Yeah, that is weird. That is strange. He's not Austrian anymore either. Austria stripped him of his dual citizenship for taking a foreign political office. Hey, there you go. what was it like when he was governor? Was it a what the fuck moment? It was the front edge of this current political system. Like, it was the really, like, the, I guess it wasn't really, because, like, Ronald Reagan was a, you know, a B movie star cum president, you know, so, but it was definitely a huge step down that. It was like a plot twist nobody called. California's in this, like, energy crisis due to the privatization of our energy grid, kind of going through like the same crap that Texas was going through, although way more malfeasance in California. Mm-hmm. When California privatized, it was just a big old fucking casino. And man, politics got crazy, and all of a sudden you hear through the grapevine that Arnold Schwarzenegger is running for governor, and you call bullshit, and then you read it in the paper and you're like, what the fuck? Then he wins. So yeah, it was a bit of a surreal moment, I would say, to be in California. There was a lot of odd shit going on then, man. Your phone would ring. You'd look at your call screening thing on your home phone line, and it would say, like, California Power Authority or whatever, and you'd pick it up, and it'd be like, warning, rolling blackouts will commence in your area in 15 minutes. Like, they were, like, warning everybody that they were about to have blackouts, and it was just happening constantly. Like, every day you'd get, like, what is going on? And you have all, like, the, like, experts, and all of them agreed California makes more than enough power to not only power the entire state, but to export power to other states. So there's literally no reason why power should be going off in California. And that ended up being the portent that led people down the road of, like, the scam that was going on. Enron was literally, like, waiting until power was cheap in California and then exporting tons of it to keep the demand high in California, moving it around at key times to make the price of energy spike, because at that point, when they privatized the energy grid, the price of energy was fluid. It was based on, like, when you were using power and what the demand for power was at the exact second that you were using it. And so Enron and other companies learned that they could just force that. They could force the entirety of LA to pay double for their power for 6 hours, and then when the demand went down, export it out to somewhere else and charge them double for it. It was fucking crazy, bro. Full blown crazy.
Yeah, like, I think that's probably the soundest argument, like, against libertarians. What Enron did to California.
I mean, yeah. Or what they did to Texas. I mean, look at Texas sitting there in deep freeze because there was no plan to import power. They privatized their grid to the point where they cut off outside access to it, and none of these surrounding states could import power to Texas because they didn't have a facility for it, and so people just sat there and froze. I mean, if anything, there's a massive argument for the privatization of any utility, including, like, internet. Do you think Vosh will run for political office? I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I really don't think that there's a chance of that. I think that there's just too much beef floating around out there about Vosh. I don't think he's any worse than, like, any number of other national politicians and state politicians that have served. I just think the fact that he sits and talks constantly probably precludes him. It's the same reason why, like, I don't think that I would ever be able to serve as a politician. Not that I would seek it, but if I tried to, there's, like, thousands and thousands of hours of me saying all kinds of crazy shit. And, you know, that pretty much precludes you.
Yeah, the more popular you are, the more haters you have, too.
True.
So he's, I think, reach this peak where he's got an equal number of haters and fans.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is a driving force behind his channel. The momentum that he has is fed almost as much, if not just as much, by the fans that he has than it is by the detractors that he has. I mean, people voted for Trump when he has said crazy stuff. Yeah, but think about it, all right? So Trump had that Access Hollywood behind the scenes tape. Vosh has hundreds and hundreds of hours of not behind the scenes stuff that if you just do a little context clipping, it's every bit, like you could probably find 20 or 30 things just as destructive as the Access Hollywood tape. He said, you know, a lot of edgy shit, made a lot of edgy jokes.
And then there's the Discord logs. Like, Trump didn't have no Discord logs.
Yeah. You have any advice for young people getting older? No. Not really. You got to figure that shit out. I had to. Bosch already has a big following. Wouldn't that give him an advantage? I don't
It's
know.
not big in context of what we're talking about.
I mean, he's not like a national figure or whatever, or international figure. Maybe that'll change, you know. But I think at this point, I don't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know why somebody in his position would even want to run for office. Like, it would be a pay cut for him, like an immense pay cut, an immense lifestyle change. And he would have to play the political game as well. I think people overthink the popularity of internet figures. Well, I always go back to this thing that we covered because I think we made a point that stands really well, and I think about it all the time. Back when when people were canceling Louis C.K. and you know, he apologized for his inappropriate behavior or whatever, and kind of like disappeared for about 6 months, and then, you know, he stuck his toe in the water and did a show in New York. And it was, you know, not a huge arena or something, but he sold out this venue. Tons and tons of people packed in to see him. And there was a news story about how there was one person at one point who popped off and said some shit and got up and left or whatever. And the other, you know, 99.9% of the audience stayed there, watched the comedy, and enjoyed it. That one person that got up and left is a Twitter leftist. That's the Twitter left getting up and leaving. And so, because Twitter is given such a magnifying glass by the news media treats it like it's some kind of like finger on the pulse of the American people. It's given this like false sense of importance in our society. But people don't realize that, like, when you talk about the online left or whatever, you're talking about a tiny little shaving of the overall left. And really, let's talk about the online left for a second. This latest drama that's come up with Vosh and ContraPoints and all that shit, I think it points to a problem with the online left. And that is, if you look at the term left, politically speaking, you have a broad umbrella where tons and tons of different perspectives can live underneath the harmonious umbrella of being leftist. So you've got, you know, Marxists and Leninists and, you know, anarchists and everything in between. You've got liberals and you know, dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, and you've got people that feel like the DNC is the fucking enemy, and they're just like, you've got people on the left that criticize people on the left more heavily than they criticize people on the right. You know, there's this huge ocean of opinion and political stance that falls under the umbrella of the left, but the online left wants it to be a sliver. There's one sliver of the left that is appropriate to the online left, and if you fall anywhere outside of that tiny little sliver umbrella, then you're not a leftist. So really the online left is an example of infighting on the left, if anything else.
I feel honestly that Ben Shapiro would have a better chance of political office than Vosh, just because the right is more united than the left.
Well, not only that, but Ben Shapiro isn't edgy like Vosh is. I mean, like, he is, like, some of the things that he'll say are technically, but it's not the same type of edge. It's not that joking edge. He doesn't have hours and hours of sussy statements according to what people on the right want. He's basically kind of held this semi-respectable position on the right for long enough that, yeah, it might work for him. I think the fact that he's a Jew would probably preclude him from holding national office, though. I think a lot of the people that watch him are probably also anti-Semitic as fuck.
But yeah, that's why the Access Hollywood thing didn't work on Trump, is because the right was so sick of the cancel culture shit that they were just...
Right. They were going after a right-leaning politician, and at that time, cancel culture was, getting a full head of steam and shit, and one of the ways to oppose that is to say fuck you and elect somebody who said some sussy shit, because you can't cancel them. It's just... Plenty of Jewish people in major office positions. Yeah, I know, but how many of those people have a rabid right-wing fan base? Probably not many. But yeah, there's definitely an observational effect that happens on people that are really buried in this online leftism shit. Everything is magnified, and people think that average people are paying attention to what's going on when they aren't. They start to feel like that they're driving the conversation on the left, and they aren't. It's you can't do that with a sliver. So it's basically just a big pajama party for leftists. Everybody dress up in your favorite pajamas and let's all have an argument over here. And nobody else on the left sees what's going on inside the pajama party or cares about the outcome of the pajama party.
Or like a good example would be like, yeah, that meetup that you guys did in New Orleans, and someone's like, "What's a podcast?"
Yeah.
That's the majority of America.
Yeah. Yeah, we were standing outside at our meetup, and there was tons of people around, and some dude drove by in a truck and was like, "What's this for?" We're like, "Deep Fat Fried." "What's that?" "It's a podcast." "What's a podcast?" Like, yep, there goes America. There goes your average person. I'm not saying this 100% of the case, but a lot of the right's arguments are very simplistic and can seem correct using common sense, but are totally wrong because of not taking into account context. Okay, yeah. Maybe 20 years down the line, new media will be the dominant, leading people like Vosh gaining political office. I don't see any, here's the thing. That magnification principle is still in effect. And so what's being said on Twitter is not reflective right now of what's being said anywhere else in the United States. It's a very small minority of leftists that are involved in the online left space. So it's going to have to become 10 times more influential. People are actually going to have to adopt it. Mm-hmm. Twitter is going to have to grow exponentially. It's going to have to become like one of these things where not only is everybody using the app, or most people, but most people are also using the app for political positions. Mm-hmm. If you take the broad Twitter base and look at it in its entirety, you might think oh my God, look at how many people are here, but how many of those people are segmented off in their own little world where they follow like a quilting Twitter, or, you know what I mean? Like there's
Or
just
like look at the actual trends, not the for you trends, but the actual trends. It'll be like sports or 90
Right.
Day Fiance or whatever the fuck.
Right. There are people out there that are like, oh my God, fucking Vosh is trending again. He's like, he's trending for people who watch Vosh. Like, there's nobody is seeing Vosh V trending that isn't already aware of Vosh. If you've never looked at a Vosh or a Vosh adjacent thing, and you're not a follower of somebody that's involved in that whole little arena, that doesn't trend for you. Something else is trending.
Yeah, look at the actual trends, and it's like, I swear it's like sports or something every single day.
Always, yeah. If you actually go to what's trending on Twitter, you can get a look at what's trending internationally, and it's always sporting events. Every once in a while, like a political, like a mainstream political entity will say something. Joe Biden said this. Joe Biden said that. Kamala Harris did this. War in Ukraine. That you don't see. So people, because there's a lot of people in this little subgroup, people have gotten this idea that the world is watching them, and they really aren't.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little in-group. It's like a Transformers discussion forum that's really popular. It's banging. It's got hundreds of thousands of people in it. And so you think, God damn, the world is obsessed with Transformers. No.
Yeah, it's like right now, St. Patrick is #1, March Madness is #2.
There you go. A lot of people think that, dude. I see that all the time. People going like, oh my God, Vosh is trending. And I'm like, that's because you rabidly follow Vosh. Go to the actual what's trending worldwide page and you will never see Vosh on it. Not one time. Can't see the forest for the trees. That's, yeah. I mean, that's literally why that aphorism was pinned. You know, you're standing in what is a relatively large group of people. It's hard to understand that that large group of people is a tiny sliver of the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to live in that situation where your entire life is punctuated by what's going on in this little political sub-universe. It's really easy to get the idea that that's affecting things in the real world. That your average person knows what that is or would care if they did. And that's the hill that has to be climbed. Wasn't Vosh legitimately trending worldwide not too long ago? I don't think so.
Are you talking about the J.K. Rowling thing?
Yeah.
That may be that one time, but people act
wasn't J.K. Rowling trending though? Was it really Vosh that was trending, or was it just J.K. Rowling that was trending? This is what I'm talking about.
Twitter wants to show you what you want to see.
If you watch a lot of Vosh, he's going to be trending. If you follow Vosh or, you know, the people in that community, engage in that community, you're going to see it trending all the time. Your average Twitter user never heard of a Vosh. Though to his credit, plenty of people have called her a transphobe with no response at all. I mean, if you look at what actually got the response for her, he served her up an easy dunk. She doesn't respond to the other people because they bring up measured, you know, critiques of her anti-trans positions. He is a popular in part of Twitter guy who just served her up a fucking, I'm gonna go ahead and make a misogyny while I'm doing this. I'm, you know, and that's why she was like, oh look, one of these big online pro-trans leftists doing a misogyny. Like, fuck, dude, could you have given me a more easy layup? Let me just reach up and...
Yeah, Because that doesn't change a single person's mind because they
No.
see exactly what they want to see, the misogyny.
Right. So think about that. 14 million plus people follow J.K. Rowling, right? 99% of them don't give a fuck about this trans shit. And the only input they have on it is, oh my God, look at how this fucking rabid, crazy online leftist is being a misogynist to J.K. That's literally the effect that had. So if you want to say that that's like, I don't know, internationally important or whatever, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree.
That's the TERF's whole argument, is that, the trans thing is...
That is one of the cruxes of being a TERF, right? Is an idea that trans women are not women, they're men, and they're trying to intrude on a female space. They're trying to bring the misogynistic ideas that men have and internalize them within a female space. Do I agree with that? Absolutely fucking not. I've known trans people. I believe trans people. But if that's your point, what better way to show that than some giant dude with a giant following being a misogynist to you? Easy dunk. Easy layup for J.K. Rowling. Easy layup for the TERFs.
Yeah. Twitter's not about convincing anyone. It's just people, like, on their teams, like...
And I want to make a point here. Like, I'm not saying Vosh shouldn't have said anything. Like, I think he should say whatever he wants to say. I understand the difference between a joke, like ironic misogyny, and actual misogyny. I don't think that Vosh is an actual misogynist. I may be wrong about that. I don't think he is. But you have to understand that's not what matters. Perception is what matters. I don't like that it's that way, but it's just the truth. Like, I really don't care that Vosh said what he said to J.K. Rowling, but if you're talking about, like, putting a good face on online leftism or whatever, there's a bad look all the way around. It escaped very briefly into normie culture, and normie culture took a big fat shit on it and then blocked it and ignored it. And then Vosh has been rapidly just recontextualizing it now for what, like 6 days straight and counting? How does that look? Like, let's say there is somebody from J.K. Rowling's fucking side that, like, saw that one tweet that she made and was like, I'm gonna go check this guy out and see what his problem is. When that one normie J.K. Rowling fan clicks on Vosh to go over to his channel and just sees, like, a wall of, like, J.K. Rowling, oh my God, cat black, J.K. Rowling, my dick, blah, blah, blah. They're gonna be like, this guy's fucking unhinged. She was right. Look how obsessed he is. How constantly he's fucking talking about JK. Ugh.
Or arguing with other women or whatever.
Look how look at him. He's arguing with women constantly. Yeah, that must be what this guy's about. The big ass fucking misogynist guy. Ugh. I'm not saying that it's a good thing that matters. I'm just telling you this is how shit gets spread. This is how shit works.
Yeah, because it was like 2 incidents with women back to back. Like, so they're gonna just see, oh, he doesn't like women. He argues with women.
And that's the small sliver of people that even bothered to click on him after JK roasted him. Yeah. Most of the people that follow JK just went like, oh, what a piece of shit.
Or, yes,
telling a woman to shut up. Like, who is this fucking doughy, pale ass white cis boy telling a woman to shut up? Anyway, let's do some more Harry Potter stuff.
Or let's
play Wordle.
Yep.
Anyway, back to Wordle. It looks nonstop. That's because it is nonstop. There's a 7-hour fucking stream about it. Who does that? 7 straight. I don't think Vosh himself, Ingar says Vosh is legit kind of unhinged with how he reacts to people in the world events. He has to make up quips to his teenage fan base to treat him as gospel. Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't think Vosh is unhinged, but I think the perception is that he's unhinged. Like, try and put yourself in the boots of a normie J.K. Rowling fan that all you've ever seen of Vosh is him telling J.K. Rowling and all women to shut up and apologize. That's all you know. You don't know about, the intricacies of the TERF argument. All you see is somebody telling a powerful woman that's very important to you, because she wrote the wizard book, to shut up and start apologizing to men or whatever. Yeah. Not a good look. Like, not a good window to get your ideas through to a person who's not aware of them. She did write the wizard book. She did. I'm not gonna look. I'm not gonna deny it. She wrote the wizard book. How would you steel man J.K. Rowling's position? I don't think I would even attempt to. I don't agree with J.K. Rowling's position. I think it's anti-trans. I think it's a transphobic position, and I don't share her position. Harry Potter is the iPhone of stories. Wizard lady. Master has closed Dobby's Twitter. Dobby is free. Is there any position where there's genuine critiques against the trans movement, or genuinely it's all classified as bigoted? I don't know, man. I would have to go through each argument individually. I mean, maybe we can do that one of these times. If we can find a succinct kind of like summation of all of the arguments that are made against the trans community or in response to the trans community, I could take a look at it. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that off the top of my head, though. But, the mainstream arguments that I hear coming from TERFs don't hold water to me. Would I be a bigot for not wanting to date a trans woman? No. No, I don't think so.
You'd be a bigot if you attacked a woman when you realized she was trans.
Right. Like it's about your actions, right? You are not required to date anybody. You're not required to be attracted to any single individual. That is not under anybody else's control, and that's not the purview of anybody's politics. Who you're attracted to, who you spend your time with, is 100% wholly up to you. So just not wanting to date a trans person does not imply that you're bigoted. But if you don't want to date the trans person for bigoted reasons, well, that's different, right?
Or the whole panic thing, oh, what? I have this crush on this girl and she's trans.
Right.
Ah!
What do you say to trans people who say that that's transphobic? Not wanting to date a trans person in a vacuum is transphobic? Where's the phobia? I don't want to date a big, giant, burly man. Does that mean I have a phobia of giant, burly men? No. I'm not attracted to giant, burly, masculine dudes. That doesn't make me a bigot. I'm not trying to say that trans people are burly, masculine men. I'm just saying.
People got types.
Right. My type is my type. And you can't police my attraction.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's that's the crux of it, is people will find someone trans attractive, and
right.
then they have this am I actually gay or whatever. Right.
JK said that if she were born in a different time, she would have considered transitioning I think she was just saying that to have cred, like she had the right to discuss. I don't know. Who knows? She has an opinion. I'd have to like examine the statement. I say I don't follow J.K. Rowling rabidly, so, or even like at all. I don't think I follow her on Twitter, so I wouldn't know. I think when it comes to stuff like that, it's not necessarily because there might be people. There's really it's hard to tell, right? There might be people who don't want to date a trans person because of some kind of internalized transphobia. It's what they do with it that matters. So if they just politely decline to date somebody and move on with their lives, how is that hurting anybody? How can you make an argument that somebody shouldn't be allowed to do that? But if they're going loudly proclaiming you're a man and blah blah blah, blah and shitting on that person and reacting all fucking aggro or whatever the hell, then that's bigoted, right? You have to take the step, right? You're being outwardly bigoted. Trying to like unpack people's internalized bigotry is a losing battle. What do you think is the appropriate age to introduce sexual related content to children, and what do you think about places doing it earlier than that? This has been a conversation that was going on back when I was a kid. So here's the thing. When I was a kid, one of the big kind of panics, especially in the area that I grew up in, for context, the area that I grew up in, I don't know if it's still true, but when I was a teenager, had per capita, the little town I grew up in, Madera, California, per capita, had the highest teenage pregnancy rate in the nation. So there were more pregnant teens in my little town per capita than anywhere else on the planet. And so there was a big sex ed discussion when I was a kid, and I heard both sides of it. There were parents that thought, oh, there's no way that you should be introducing grade school kids to the sexual concepts and stuff. And then there were people that go like, well, look, if you keep keeping this from children, that's how you end up with these 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds that are pregnant, right? If you just make it a taboo and you refuse to cover anything about it, you refuse to give people basic education, that's what leads to this problem. And so that was the big argument back when I was a kid. My stand on it is that I think that basic sexual education is fine at an early age. I think that it making a taboo out of human sexuality leads to bigoted ideas about human sexuality and leads to problems like teenagers having babies and shit like that, rape, sexual abuse. When sex is a big no-no, don't talk about it taboo, how much easier is it for sexual abuse to go unnoticed? How much easier is it for rape to fall by the wayside because a woman or a girl doesn't want to come forward, or a man doesn't want to come forward and say...
Or a girl just can't articulate it because
right.
she's never been taught about it.
Right. Doesn't know that it's wrong. Doesn't know that that's not the way things are supposed to go. Doesn't, you know what I mean? It's hard to make an argument for denying basic human information to children.
And like as a result, you got better sex ed than I did 20 years before I did.
Yeah.
I got the abstinence only and the slideshow of gonorrhea.
Yeah. I mean, I actually had, and I didn't really get what I would call like standard sexual education until I was in junior high. But I actually got the whole like, here's how a condom works. Here are the different types of like contraceptives that you can use, and here's what they prevent and what they don't. Like, for example, the pill doesn't prevent gonorrhea. You know, like that may seem like a no shit moment for you, but when you're talking about fucking 11-year-olds or 12-year-olds, they don't know that shit. You know what I mean? Their parents don't talk to them about it. Now they know. There's not a pill you can take to protect yourself from the diseases. That only protects you from getting somebody pregnant or becoming pregnant. You know, I really cannot think of an argument for not informing kids about that shit.
don't have to get like super duper explicit, but just be like, like if you've had a period, that means that you can get pregnant now, which means you
I think
gotta
it
be
should be
careful.
like age appropriate, and
Yeah.
they should keep in mind that kids develop at different times and shit. This is
Yeah.
why I think singular, like one-on-one education
Mhm.
or splitting kids into different educational groups is so important.
Mhm.
Because if you've got a little girl that is like started her period at 10 or some shit, and all her, like, she needs education about that. So there should be a facility where she's pulled aside and given an education along with other girls in her class that are going through the same thing. You know what I mean? Same thing for boys. Like, I developed kind of precociously as a boy. Like, in sixth grade, I started full blown puberty. Voice dropped and the whole nine fucking thing. You know what I mean? And I really do think that there could have been a facility for me that would have maybe pulled me aside and even done better with me, given me a more direct education on some of the stuff that I was going through and the changes my body was going through and shit.
And you have to preempt it too. You can't tell someone after it's already happened.
No.
You got to try to get people informed before it happens.
Well, that's the argument for these earlier
Yeah.
basic sex ed courses. Is that you can't catch every kid as that happens. And so the idea of giving a generalized education to everybody so that when it happens for them, it's not a surprise, it's not a shock, it's not ugly, it's not something that they're ashamed of. It is what it is. Maybe in the days where TV was the only screen, you had a chance of keeping your kids away from media that was above their age, but now when every snot minor has an internet capable smartphone, no way. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, maybe I'm wrong about this. Yeah, I am wrong about this. I'm being boomerish about this. I was about to say that there really isn't a fundamental difference between when I was raised and now, but the breadth of media and the tons of different stuff that you can get your hands on, pornography included, is just completely and utterly in a different fucking planet than when I was a kid. I had a way more limited media input during my formative years than most people do. Mm-hmm. And I was a kid that was kind of like an early adopter of a lot of this. Remember, my dad was a computer geek back in the 80s, and so I was the first kid that I knew that had a computer. I had a computer in my home before schools had computers, you know what I mean? And so I was an early adopter, and even then, I got a fraction of the exposure that modern kids do to just the entirety of human life. So I think that even like puts an impetus even more on adults and the education system to be proactive in educating kids on what they're seeing and what, like trying to intercede before they find misinformation. And I don't see any kind of problem with that. I really don't see a logical argument about that.
And teach parents how to lock down their shit.
That's another huge one too. Like teaching parents how to take control of the internet and the distribution of the internet in their child's life and shit, and how to be wary of that and monitor it and stuff. Oh my God, yeah.
It would be so simple to just like tie. They have parents come to like parent-teacher conferences, like make that part of it. Like,
yeah.
You got to learn how to lock down your kid's shit.
Absolutely, and that's something that I think has like a broad appeal that goes across like people, no matter what their social ideas are. Like I was talking to my brother-in-law about it. He's he's a Christian guy, and he's also a tech guy. I used to work with him in the school district, so he knows about computers and shit. He knows how to keep that shit locked down from his kids. And I was telling him, like, you should give a talk at your church or something about this and teach other parents how to, like, that you don't just the internet's not just there. You know what I mean? You can lock it down in various ways and to various degrees, and it's not that hard. You know what I mean? Because I think that that could only be a good thing. But even if you lock down your kid's shit, there's 100 some other kids at home. Blah blah blah. Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to also, but that's part of being a parent. You have to monitor who your kid is spending time with. And I'm telling you, dude, kids are not smart. If your kid is over there looking at something that they're not supposed to, like if they go to a friend's house and their friend's mom doesn't have the internet locked down, all you got to do is be an attentive parent to catch some shit like that. You know what I mean? They're going to talk about it. They're going to giggle about it. And if you overhear that shit, you just fucking, like, it's your job as a parent. It's just like, well, how do I keep my kid off of it? It's just like, how is your kid getting on it? Well, their phone. Who bought that? Who pays the bill on that? Like, how do I get the kid off of it? Take the fucking phone. See, this is something that is like, it's a switch that's got flipped in society that I really think needs to get unflipped for a multitude of reasons, personal and just public. Number one, I hate this idea that I am on call 24/7 to everybody who I've ever given my fucking phone number to. That shit is whack. Okay? So that's my personal issue with it. But this idea that you have to be like personally in touch with every human being, including your kids. You know what my parents used to do? My mom bought me and you could do this for a kid too now. Even give them a cell phone. You could buy a dumb phone for your kid that will literally only dial you. You realize that, right? You could buy a phone for your kid that doesn't have access to the internet that will only text and dial you. Why don't you do that? If your worry is I can't get a hold of my kid, give them that. Back before cell phones and shit, when I was in high school, my mom bought me a prepaid phone card that had like $20 on it, and I was only ever allowed to use it to call her, and it was so that I could get to a payphone and call her anytime I needed. And this was a time where, there were like 10 payphones on my campus in high school.
Yeah, I think it was the shootings that really like convinced a lot of parents that like, oh, my kid needs a phone in case something like that happens.
Just like, how did that help? How would that have helped though? Yeah. If you're at work and your kid calls and goes like, there's a school shooting.
They're not going to let any kids off the campus.
Yeah, you're not going to get on the campus. Your child isn't going to get off the campus until it's taken care of. So what does your knowing about it immediately do anything about it? But even then, like if that's your worry, get them a phone that'll only call you. Get them a phone that has 3 phone numbers in it. Your home phone, your cell phone, and your work phone number. Only texts you. Doesn't access the internet in any way, and give them that. I didn't get a smartphone until I was 13, dude. That's you're one of the last generations to like even have to wait that long. I see little kids. A lot of times they're just holding their parents' phone, but that's the same shit. Throw your fucking iPhone and at a little kid? Like, why? Why would you even want that?
It's like parents don't know how to say no anymore.
Yeah.
And like they'll freak out. It's like, oh, my kid spent all this money on my phone. It's like, you gave it to him.
There's this, I don't know if did this happen to you guys when you were kids? Let me ask you guys, those of you that are like in your 20s, let me be honest with me there in the chat. Those of you that can get to it, if you're driving or whatever, don't chat. Just to ask you guys a question, okay? When you were kids, those of you that are in your 20s, younger than me, would your parents take things from you as punishment? Like if you had a Nintendo or whatever, you had your PlayStation 2 or whatever the fuck, would you get in trouble and then your dad would fucking come and unplug that shit and wrap it up and put it up and you just didn't have that shit anymore? Yeah. Right. So I've only seen one no, and it's probably a troll. Everybody's saying yes. So what's the problem here? Very rarely? Well, sure. I mean, it didn't happen to me like all the time, but if I had some shit that I loved, like a Nintendo or a toy or whatever, time with my friends, that shit was on the chopping block. Like if I fucked up and did something wrong, I wasn't going to get to hang with my friends. If I fucked up and did something wrong, I'd go out into the living room and I'd see my Nintendo and all my games were gone. You know, there was a time, like when I was in my early teens, where I've talked to you guys about it, where I was into the CB radio. I had a whole setup. I had a big ass antenna, an aerial they called it, that my dad bought me, that was strapped to the side of our house, a big like 20-foot aerial, a big old tall antenna. I had an old powerful base station CB, and I used to love talking on that. My parents knew it, and when I fucked up and got a bad grade or did something I wasn't supposed to do or lied or cheated or did this, that shit got wrapped up. That antenna just sat out there, not plugged into anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why that seems to have gone away as a possibility. Take that shit from your kids. Had to fuck up bad to get my shit taken away, but it happened. Yeah, for sure. Mom took my Xbox away, so I decided to learn how to make bombs. Yeah, that's what happens. My dad always threatened to smash my PSP and Xbox as a kid. Well, that's abusive. That's different. George Carlin called it the pussification of the West. I don't know about that, but it just seems like parents have delegated a lot of the responsibility of being parents to digital devices and the internet and, you know, all the streaming shows and stuff that come with that. My mom tried to ground me off the computer by taking the mouse, so I taught myself keyboard-only navigation. Well, that's just boomer shit.
That's what people used to have to do.
She should have took the keyboard, too. Then what? Or just took the computer. I don't know. Even the argument against, like, sex education, to bring it back to that, seems to imply that sex education is needed. It's like, you know, you don't want kids, you don't want kids to know things before it's relevant to them. Well, they already are. Like, that's the problem. That's why there's teen pregnancy. So would you rather them know it from a source that's telling them the truth and being honest about it, or would you rather them know it as a big taboo that they're not allowed to talk about or discuss? It doesn't make any sense. Does taking away things really reflect the best form of punishment? There's a wide variety of things as a parent that you can do as quote-unquote punishment, and it's one of the things that I think should be done more often. Like, you realize, like, you could give your kid a smartphone, right? A lot of people don't even know this. Give your kid a smartphone. You can lock that phone down and make it that dumb phone that I was talking about. So, like, make that part of the punishment and shit. You know what I mean? If you've got a teenager or something and you've given them a phone, just be like, give me your phone. Turn on the parental controls so that none of the fucking browsers are open up and none of the bullshit will open up without your fucking password. Bleepity bloop, blobbity bleep. Now all you can do is call me. There you go. You straighten up and fly right, maybe I'll let you text your friends again. But Paul, you're saying basic sex education, whereas that's not what's being pushed. The over-sexualization of things has only increased. Give me examples. Give me an example of like a kindergarten level sex ed class that just goes completely over the top or some shit. Because unless that exists, I don't even want to hear it. Kids are not being told anything different than I was being told. Here's how a condom works. Here's how the different types of contraceptives work. here's the consequences of having a baby really early, and here's what's going to happen in your life. Here's the things that you won't be able to do if you have a baby at fucking 13 years old. Blah, 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 blah. Just the reality of sex. Like, it's going to happen. Here's how it works. Here's how you can protect yourself if you find yourself in a position to do that. You can also abstain if you'd like. It's not something that you have to do. A lot of people wait until they feel like it's the right time. So there's no rush to do it. But if you find yourself in the position that you're going to do it, here's how to do it kind of safely. Here's how to be as safe as you can. No.
Last I checked, STDs had gone up, so I don't think that it's gotten more explicit if STDs are going up.
Yeah. It's just...
Everyone had the AIDS panic, and then it wore off, and then suddenly they thought that kids didn't need to know about condoms anymore for some reason.
Well, it was always, like, even during the AIDS epidemic and shit of the early 80s and mid 80s, it was always a controversy. Mm-hmm. So it was just like you would imagine it. Southern states would fight against it and strike down these sex ed program a lot, and more rural areas were against it. There was just this big social movement with, on one hand, people going like, look, a lot of the people that are catching AIDS are fucking really young people. They're kids. And kids don't, like, a lot of it had to do with access too. When I was a kid, when I was in middle school and high school, I could go to my school nurse and sight unseen ask for condoms, and they would give you condoms. They wouldn't call your parents. They wouldn't whine about it. They wouldn't give you some kind of talk. You'd get condoms. So a lot of it was access to this type of shit too. It's one thing to tell kids, oh, you can use condoms, and then make it a taboo for them to have it. You know what I mean? You can't have one. You can't have both ways.
Look, you had that good sex education, and you weren't fucking at 14.
Yeah. Well, I would have been if I could have been. Wrap it up or die, kindergartners. I mean, yeah. Why not? I'm not saying, like, I really don't think anybody's making the argument that you give condom education to a kindergartner. But, like, 5th grade, 6th grade, probably a good time for a kid to have at least seen a demonstration and know exactly what's available. Because, like it or not, that's when it starts. And then even more basic, maybe non-specific sex education even before that, because we all know when childhood abuse starts.
Yeah, you can teach someone the basics about consent.
Right. Good touch, bad touch, and all of that stuff, and have it reinforced not just by your parents, but by your fucking teachers and stuff too, because I hate to tell parents this, but the way our society is structured, I looked up to a number of my teachers every bit as much as I looked up to my mom and dad. I had a number of teachers when I was a kid that were authority figures in my life. I wanted, I had those same feelings towards them. So that's power. You gotta hit kids from both ways. A lot of kids don't have that strong foundation at home. So you're the net, man. Public education is the net. Must be a game going on or something. You know?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What are you doing?
Is Lil Pump over there or something? Is there a Lil Pump concert today? Do you hear him? Yeah.
Are they having like a pep rally? Might be having one of those.
This is around the time that you get, because it's like...
Yeah, it's early still. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a game. Maybe it's just a pep rally.
It sounds like, yeah, because I can hear like somebody giving a speech and then there's cheers.
Yeah.
So it probably is a pep rally. I only really did a rally one time in high school. because like attendance was not mandatory.
Oh, it was mandatory.
Yeah, like they would bus the kids that wanted to go to the pep rally, and then the other kids could stay back in whatever class they had and just kind of have free time or whatever. And when I learned that, I went to one, and I was like, man, this is fucking lame. They sucked, bro.
We had to go to every single one. We got in trouble if we weren't at the pep rally.
Dude, here's how lame it was. I went to the pep rally, and they had given one, like they did all this what's going on right now with the principal talking and blah, 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 blah. And then they had given a committee that was decided by the student body the right to play a couple of songs for one of the things. Like we would play some music. And somebody put on Bullet with Butterfly Wings by the Smashing Pumpkins. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage, that song, which was brand new and hot. That was the new hotness. They played about 25, 30 seconds of it, and then the fucking principal walked over and made them cut it off. And everybody booed. And I was like, why would I ever come to another one of these? You can't play that good music that you're into. We play a little bit of like Mary Had a Little Lamb or Row, Row, Row Your Boat or something. Like, what did they think? Like, they were trying to do like student body outreach or whatever. And like, oh, you guys got to elect a few people. And now they're going to do their DJ set. They're going to play some songs. We got to hear like a minute of Bullet with Butterfly Wings. And they were like, cut it off. It's too violent.
I got sick of Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA because they played that at every single pep rally.
See, that's what I'm talking about, man. That sucks. We didn't have this bubblegum bullshit. My generation didn't play like that. We didn't hand them crappy pop music to play. They couldn't play our music. That's the point, dude. All our music was edge. It was all gangster rap and like, really doomery, depressed fucking grunge rock. Couldn't play none of that shit. Now you guys got like fucking all this like pop princess crap that they can put on. It's unoffensive, bland gruel that doesn't challenge anything about anything. Was that Call Me Maybe song? Did they play that one a lot too? Yep. I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe. Oh my God, man. Ugh.
And then they would have talent shows too, and I swear every single girl had to sing Jar of Hearts.
What was that one?
It was an Adele one.
Oh, God. Yeah. Dude, they had to stop doing talent shows during my era. I will never forget when my friend Morgan, who, like, by the way, if you watch the desktop streams, typically I will play a song with him singing in it. This was junior high, so it was my 8th grade graduation, but he's a year younger than me, so it was his 7th grade year. And they had an end of the year talent show, and this motherfucker dyed his hair with Kool-Aid, did himself all up like Kurt Cobain, and went out there and like played, like had the song played in the background and just had a mic and ripped it, and was allowed to. That was the last we heard of that shit though. Music started to get too edgy at that point. Couldn't have kids doing talent shows. Just disappeared for like a generation. And even our fucking shitty poppy songs that they could have played were actually good. I'm trying to think of the most syrupy songs. There were some bad ones kind of in the later 90s. Like as the 90s wore on, the shit started to creep in. The 2000s were coming. So there was like this band called Lynn they had this song called Steal My Sunshine. Anybody remember that shit? Like just syrupy. I know it's not for me to steal my sunshine. There was that. There was Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. You guys remember that? Anybody heard that song? Kiss me underneath the bearded barley. Yeah, there was that one. I'm trying to think of the other, like, any. There was very few of these songs that were just genuinely, like, syrupy. REM wasn't syrupy. Oh yeah, Shiny Happy People, but the whole point of that song is that it's not. Like that song was that song was like an ironic song, right? So the whole idea is the song sounds very happy, but it's not a very happy song. Everyone just listen to that stanza and the key that it's in. Everyone around happy, happy. Does that sound happy to you? Just think. Planted in the ground, laughing, laughing. It sounds a little, there's a lot of minor key being used there for a happy song. Ace of Base, yeah. You're right. I saw the sign. You know what, dude? They were kind of good, though, because their beats were good. So kiss me. That's a cute song, though, isn't it? That song is kind of cute. It's charming. I'm definitely not like experiencing nostalgia and making nostalgia allotments for that song. It's cute. It's a cute song. You gotta have something to slow dance to at the prom, you know? Too mushy. You gotta have a little mushiness in your life, man. You can't be like 100% not mushy all the time, right? Kiss me beneath the milky twilight. Lead me through the open door. Strike up the band and let the fireflies dance. Silver moon sparkling. I love it, dude. That's a cute song. I don't care what you say. Song cute. Yeah, Green Day went soft as fuck. Green Day went from making like really aggressive, loud, kind of like alternative pop punk that was real aggressive and hard and like made your parents mad to singing songs that your parents were grooving to real quick. There's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you have the time of your life. Let's put some violin in it too. Garbage. Yeah, dude, coffee shop music. Dude, we were all like, dude, nobody that grew up listening to Green Day was grew into that. We were just like, if you ever listen to metalcore or post-hardcore music, get a fucking profile pic, kid. Boulevard of Broken Dreams is a pretty lame song. It's like somebody fed Billy Joel like a fistful of Xanax. Just all maudlin. Maudlin. That's how I would describe that song. And you know, you can be maudlin and be good, but it's not maudlin and good. It's just maudlin. Dreary. Whiny. Lyrically kind of like lolsy. Just like reeks of like edgy kid shit. I walk a lonely road down the only one I've ever known. Don't know where it goes. Dookie is like, dude, so that's the thing. Is like kids will like there are people that are all into that newer fucking Green Day shit, and they'll be like, "Oh, you a boomer." It's like, dude, put on Dookie. Just shut your stupid little mouth and put on Dookie and learn something, bro. Blow my nose. Oh yeah, I got bugs, huh? Yeah, I'm gonna go do that. I'll go blow my nose real quick. That feels better.
Oh, there we go. There's Mr. Squinty Space.
Oh yeah. What you think, D? Your bow. Go get your bow.
Too squinty.
Liking that sun too much. Missed a dragon fly by while you were gone. That was crazy. Fuck.
Well, you can go watch it later.
I'm always missing it. Where you from, cut? What city you from, cut? You a long way from Starbucks, cut. Juggalo music is superior to Louis Armstrong. Hashtag facts. Hey, cool, bro. Why would I argue with you about that? I mean, people's taste in music is subjective. If you like some Juggalo shit, I'm glad you found something that you like, homeboy. Or homegirl. Or home person, such as it may be. You remember the first album you really got into as a kid, young teen? Yes. And I wish I could tell you the name of the album now, but the first album that I ever wanted to own myself that my parents didn't like that much was Belle Biv DeVoe's first record, the one that had Poison on it. I don't know what that album was called, but I wanted that album more than fucking God. Like, I wanted that album. I heard it at the skating rink, dude, the most 80s way to learn about a fucking band. They played, the DJ spun it at the skating rink when my ass was coasting. That girl is poison. Never trust a big butt and a smile. I was just like, oh shit. I have to have more of this. It got to the point where I wanted to go to the skating rink. It was driving me out of my mind. And it was too hard for me to find. I could not get it out of my head. Miss her, kiss her, love her.
That girl is Poison.
It is called Poison. Oh, the album was called Poison? Makes sense. That was the big cut off the album. I remember I begged my parents to get it, but they didn't want to get it because it was part of this new, like, sexually explicit, violent rap music shit. But they finally gave in because they probably listened to it and realized it was no different than like Luther Vandross, Let's Get It On or whatever the fuck, and they were like, all right, whatever. He's a kid, he wants to listen to the fucking popular music. So they got me that album. So that was the first album I ever had that I owned. It was Belle Biv DeVoe, Poison. And that song is still an eternal banger. Like that's one of those songs. If I hear the opening stanza to it, because it'll get the party starts jumping off still. Bump 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 bump. If I were you, I'd take precaution. Dude, that's a great song, man. So yeah, that was the first album I ever owned that I ever really wanted. The next album that I owned, I'm not ashamed to admit it, dude. Industry plant himself, Vanilla Ice. That was the next album I had to have. My cousins came over and they played Vanilla Ice's album. I can't remember what it was even called. But it wasn't just, fucking, hold on. Ice Ice Baby or whatever. It was that whole album, man. And I gotta be honest with you, there's some songs on that album that are okay. Like the beats and stuff are okay. But anyway, that was just culturally the thing. My cousins had access to way more music than I did because they were both older than me, and so they were cooler. And they were both super into Vanilla Ice. And Too Short, which was another rapper that I got into at the same time. And Too Short was fucking filthy. Like dirty rap. Like Megan Thee Stallion blush rap. And so yeah, I got those two albums. Those were the next two albums that I owned for myself. Vanilla Ice's album and Too Short's record, the one that had cocktails on it. You can imagine what that song was about. It's not about sipping drinks. Trying to remember. After that, the next album that I got that I really remember wearing out was a bootleg. So I got it at a swap meet. I got a tape at a swap meet that had a grip of foundational hip hop on it. Like it had Dana Dane, which is like a name you don't even hear mentioned anymore. But you talk about like this kind of like more character driven rap that's popular now, dude. A fucking foundational rapper, Dana Dane. You had MC Ricky D, who would later go on to be known as Slick Rick or the Ruler Rick. But back at the beginning of his career, he was MC Ricky D and Dougie Fresh on the beatbox with their seminal hip hop work, Lottie Dottie. I wore that one out. Had the Fat Boys on it, had Run DMC on it. It was just basically a bootleg mixtape that a dude was selling at the swap meet. And it had, like maybe 20 of the, both A, B side, 20 great hip hop classic songs. I'll never forget the Dana Dane song that was on there. It's a song called Nightmares. And dude, that song is, dude, it's, I don't even know, man. Well, I was just lucky because I had parents that were open minded enough to let me experience that type of shit because hip hop was really starting back when I got this tape. I got this tape probably in like 1988, 89, somewhere around there. These songs weren't like brand spanking new, but they were all 85 and up, and it was this new kind of sound that people in my area, especially in rural California, in Cowtown, really weren't getting to hear that kind of music, you know what I mean? And so I was really lucky that I had parents that were open-minded because they had both liked a bunch of music that, is just as objectionable. And they were both allowed to listen to their music and love their music, and so they didn't want to deny me that, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Because it allowed me to get in, experience the very foundations of a musical art form. And listen to some of the very first superstars that rap or hip hop ever produced. You know what I mean? I definitely wasn't into some of the more foundational stuff, but that first wave of super groups, pretty cool. And of course, that led to NWA, and then NWA led to the Dr. Dre Chronic era, and I was on for all of that. I had all those albums. One of my favorite eras that's almost forgotten now is the Eazy-E / Death Row Records breakup, where NWA had broken up, and Dre and Snoop did a diss track on Eazy-E on the Chronic called 187 Dre Day. And you can go back and listen to that. And then Eazy-E had to respond. So he dropped this pretty hard ass song called Real Motherfucking G's about how they're, he's a real gangster and they're just studio gangsters. And he called out like Dr. Dre, because Dr. Dre, and this isn't in they kind of like try and allude to it if you watch Straight Outta Compton, but they don't show the truth. You go look it up. Dr. Dre, and this was, whatever. It wouldn't be the diss today that it was back then, but Dr. Dre used to do this like really androgynous disco act where he was in this like sequined onesie jumpsuit that was all skin tight, and he was wearing a bunch of makeup and shit. And trying to be like like I'm riding down on fools on my 6'4" while you have pictures of like that of you floating around out there. It's a hard sell, right? So this was a big diss. He said Snoop was only 60 pounds, wet and wearing boots. He didn't say that. That was the Gangsta Dresta. See, it was the song had 2 verses by Eazy on it, and then it featured a couple of other rappers who never did anything else really. But it was sufficiently. And it was a dirty song, and I remember it caused controversy in the rap community. People were having to like draw lines and shit. And which side do you take in the beef? You know what I mean? And that really, if you think about it, kind of sadly presaged a lot of the death that happened in hip hop not too long after that shit. You know what I mean? This kind of like threatening people via your song shit was escalating. And look, say what you want about this artist's history in the streets or whatever, but there were a lot of street people in hip hop. You know, one name that comes to mind is Suge Knight. He's basically just a gangster that moved in on hip hop and was a huge dominant. There were street, like, people that were from the streets that would do street shit in hip hop. And so it was only a matter of time. And it's a really sad kind of thing to think about it now. You know, that all of this, like, beef between artists on their records that we were all, like, kind of buying into and enjoying listening to, but they were saying shit like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. You get smoked. If I see you in the streets, it's on site or whatever. You know, all that was the point, and then eventually it went there in a really kind of tragic way. We lost two of the probably greatest voices in hip hop over street beef. Tupac and Biggie gunned down in their fucking prime, dude, over street beef. So that's not a joke, man. It didn't used to be. Maybe it is now. I don't really keep up with the culture as much as I used to, I guess. But I mean, what little I do know, I know that shit is still happening. Didn't Melly shot a bunch of people, or is on trial for shooting a bunch of people. So there's still a lot of violence in the culture and shit. Is there any good documentaries on this? There's a number of really good documentaries on, like, Biggie or Tupac. Oh, or I think there's even a couple that talks about the whole beef in general, and Biggie and Tupac and both of their deaths. But as far as the etymology of this, when I'm talking about, like, the Eazy-E versus what remained of NWA beef, the Ice Cube versus NWA beef and shit, and how that shit was all about, I'm gonna, put my gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. You know what I mean? They're saying they're escalating this shit vocally in a way that is entertaining. And so it really, you'd really have to go all the way back to battle rap and shit. You'd have to go back to before rap was an international art form. It was just a burgeoning thing, because a lot of that's what it was about. Like, a lot of the harder rap can trace its lineage back to battle rapping in the streets, and these MCs trying to one up each other and flex who was the better MC. And so I don't really think there's ever been a documentary about that. There's certainly documentaries that you can watch that'll touch on aspects of the culture, but I've never seen one that was just like, what's the history of anger and beef in the hip hop scene? What role does kind of like having an outlet for your angst play? I think it'd be an interesting thing. You'd have to license a lot of really good music, and that's probably why it hasn't been done, which is kind of sad, because hearing some of these old voices and stuff, like in the actual song, not just interviews with those of them that are still alive and shit, but being able to listen to the actual song, what was said in the song. And as you can imagine, that's a right's nightmare. At the same time, rap ended a lot of beefs too. Oh yeah, see, that's the thing, is like, you can't look at the outlying violence that does erupt and say that there hasn't been maybe at least 10 times the amount of violent incidents that were just settled in that way. You know what I mean? There's an outlet. There's got to be an outlet for this shit, one way or the other. And I don't think it's as simple as going like, oh, it was wrong. I wasn't trying to paint it that way. Like, I wasn't trying to paint that it was wrong for Eazy to go at, Dr. Dre, or vice versa. To my knowledge, none of them ever killed each other. And so, it really is the escalation of that type of beef into real beef on the streets that ends up with people dead that I have to be against. But, how do you know when it's going to go there? I don't think you can just take the temperature of it and know when it's going to go there and when it isn't. There's a whole lot of divide strictly based on where you were from. It seemed east versus west. Yeah. There's a lot of gang affiliation, right? So if you really want to know the history of rap beef and all of that, you have to look at the history of organized gangs, right? And there's actually a couple of really good documentaries about this. There's actually one made by Stacy Peralta called Bloods and Crips Made in America, I believe. That's actually a really, really good look at the start of, one of America's most long-standing and violent gang wars, the Bloods and the Crips. How both of those gangs started as smaller neighborhood street gangs, and how the whole like if you watch that documentary, one of the most striking things is that those street gangs started as a way uh, for kids to kind of get their aggressions out and their territorial disputes out, but in a way that nobody died. It would be about like having fist fights and stuff, and then it escalated from that generationally to people, shooting up other people's houses as they drove by, and just like rampant fucking murder and wanton violence in the streets and shit. And it also touches on the civil rights history, which, like, if you cannot have a even basic understanding of gang violence in America if you don't understand also the history of civil rights and the history of black movements and how they've been brutally cracked down upon. Like, a lot of people think the Panthers, and they think only about the sensationalist, the terrorism trial and all of that shit. People don't know that the Black Panthers started as a community organization in Los Angeles. Like, they were a community organization that from the ground up was built to try and stop gang violence, give kids a place that they could come that were safe, and do community service, hand out meals, hand out clothes. And they were brutally, brutally cracked down upon by the white powers that be. And that had a generational effect on kids. So the kids that started gangbanging were the children of that generation. They looked at their parents and how their parents preached nonviolence and Dr. King and Malcolm X and the Black Panthers and black empowerment and peaceful living and all of this shit, and look where it left us. Look what they got out of that. If you don't understand that foundational principle, you cannot understand how street gangs went from just normal fucking kids hashing it out and having a fist fight or two to literal, like, armies of kids murdering each other in the streets. Yeah, they did. The Crips rose after the Black Panthers fell. And then the Bloods arose as a response to the Crips. Like, think about that shit. Think about being a kid whose parents were involved in the uh, civil rights struggle in the 50s and 60s in America. People whose think about you're an inner city black kid, and your parents your entire childhood talk to you about Dr. King, talk to you about Malcolm X, talk to you about the Black Panthers, and preached this kind of like nonviolence to you. And what happened to all of those people? Murdered. What psychological effect do you think that has on a kid who is already at the bottom of the economic ladder, already struggling in some of the most nightmarish poverty that you can imagine? And everything that their heads were filled with by their parents' generation turns out to go to dust. it starts to become a lot more understandable why this type of shit happens when you think about it historically and contextually. And you really can't have an understanding of it unless you look at that. But whatever. What do I know? Can't get it out of my head. Miss her, kiss her, love her. That girl is poison. Never trust a big butt and a smile. Poison. Love that shit, man. It's funny too. There's like a perspective, I think, on hip hop that I'm glad to have gotten. You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like I can see the interconnectedness of hip hop and other art forms in a way that, because I watched it happen. Like I was kind of there at the time when disco was turning into early hip hop. I got to listen to a lot of those first superstar artists that were making this new art form. And I could see already the connective tissue. Like I may not have been able to articulate it as a child, but these songs grooved to me in the same reason, for the same reason that the disco songs my parents would play groove to me, and the '80s pop songs would groove to me. And I saw the connective tissue between these art forms. I think a lot of people put their particular like taste in music on an island and try and act like it's this wholly different thing, but the bones of all this music are the same. You know what I mean? Disco. What are you, a woolly mammoth? No, my parents are though. One of the first hairless elephants, but my parents were both woolly mammoths. And you know, when so some of the other kind of music of the '90s came along that wasn't immediately identifiable as hip hop, so grunge, right? Nirvana came along, and there was a lot of people that had a dividing line. I listened to all of it, and all of my friends did too. Like I didn't have friends that were just like, "Oh man, fuck Nirvana. I'm just into hip hop." Maybe that's like we listened to all of it, and I saw a lot of connective tissue between it. If you really think about it, if you broaden your mind beyond the structure of the song and really think about the aura that that kind of music was putting off, it was an aura of like rebellion against the mainstream. It was a rebellion of youth against mainstream expectations for music and stuff. And I could be talking about grunge or I could be talking about hip hop. In fact, I'm talking about both. And that to me is a huge piece of connective tissue between these two art forms. And there was a lot of musical transfer between these two art forms. Very early on, rap and rock held hands. You know, people don't remember that Run DMC got in the room with Aerosmith and absolutely beautifully and undeniably fused rap and rock like they were never a separate thing, because they never were. I mean, like gutter ass early punk music comes from that same sense of like proletariat rebelliousness that is at the heart of hip hop. That's a piece of connective tissue. That's like a sinew connecting one muscle to another that you can't ignore. Leaving classical country music out of the convo? Absolutely not. In fact, it's a huge part of it. Have you ever listened to early country music? Have you ever listened to outlaw country? That same sense of cultural rebellion, that same sense of proletariat rebellion, it's all throughout the makeup. And if you trace the etymology of these musical art forms, country music, rock and roll music, and rap, you find that they all share their bones in the same American art form, the blues. They're all traced, and the blues itself is a fusion of European and African art forms. Having that perspective on music has led me to listen to things and appreciate things that I never would have listened to otherwise. Ice-T has a rock band. Yeah, Biohazard. He was doing rap rock, in the earlier days of what we would call modern hip hop and shit. Yeah, and I think if you talk to a lot of old heads, like if you were to sit down and talk with like Snoop or Dre, I think all of them would tell you this. In fact, like even the movie that was made about them tells you this. What's the first scene of Straight Outta Compton that you're introduced to Dr. Dre? So you have that interlude at the beginning of the movie before the title card with Eazy-E, right? Having a drug deal go bad, the cops show up and he barely escapes. Straight Outta Compton, right? What's the next scene? The next scene is Dr. Dre. I can't remember the name of the band, but he's laying on his back listening to that song Sunshine. Like a 70s funk, soul, disco fusion song. It's just like that's the way the filmmakers tell you that the music that you're about to see, the kind of truncated story of, has its roots in older music that came before it. That's like them passing the torch, right? And you see it happening all the time. Like over the course of that movie, Dr. Dre is always going back to these older songs that turn up as samples in his newer music and shit. Like, even if you go back to like pre-America, you can see the etymology of music being the same. Like popular forms of music would rise up that were irreverent. These like bawdy, like tavern tunes and stuff that, where like if they were far enough removed from the king's influence in some tiny little town, some bard would be singing some raucous bawdy song about how the king was, running around with all the maidens and stealing everyone's wives away and blah 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 blah, blah, or the king was growing fat and blah blah blah. All this like anti-authoritarian stuff, like that didn't start, in the last 50 years or something. It's just like that's what music has been. D, what are you doing?
Sleepy.
You just enjoying the sunny spot?
Wanna come here?
Oh. Is that comfy?
Mm-hmm. Such a handsome boy.
Yep.
Can Mama boop you?
It's like, no. You can't boo me. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys later. Bye, 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 bye.